Good afternoon, and this is Michael Cunningham with World Class Schools. And today we're going to look at the Battle of Gallipoli. And what we're going to look at is we're going to look at from perspective of American high school, Turkish high school, and a high school in Finland, South Australia. And we'll be joined by presentations by all three schools. The Battle of Gallipoli, and this is by Del Valle High School. The Battle of Gallipoli takes place on February 19, 1915 to January 9, 1916. Gallipoli is a peninsula which is located in the northwest coast of Turkey between the Gulf of Saros and the Dardanelles. This battle took place in the year 1950 and it was fought during World War I from 1914 to 1918. The Battle of Gallipoli, troops were landed by the British using Australian and New Zealand troops. The conflict. The battle was between the Central Powers and the Allied powers. Gallipoli was about to become one of the bloodiest campaigns in the war. Here we see one of the large amphibious landing crafts that were trying to land people on the rough terrain. What happened? In January 1915, Russia attacked Britain and also France for the assistance, and the Gallipoli campaign was born. Allied powers were extremely in need of an alternative route to Russia. In January 1915, Russia asked Britain and also France for assistance in the Gallipoli, and the Gallipoli campaign was born. Allied powers were extremely in need of an alternative route to Russia. Russia itself was isolated and lacked a lot of modern weapons. There was a problem. You had Germans and you had Turks in between that were part of the Central Powers. There wasn't any land route available to Russia, and the routes by sea had risks for running Russian ports. They were very far away from the fighting, and some of them were very close to enemy naval power. The plan of the British and the French was to force an opening waterway through Allied shipping that would allow Russia to receive weapons and munitions from its allies. The Black Sea was the only way through the Bosphorus, so the Dardanelles is a waterway to reach. There we would see that they go from the Aegean Sea up here, eventually to the Black Sea. Naval battle. Winston Churchill was the first Lord of the Admiralty, put forth his plans for a naval attack on the Dardanelles. The plan was ordered on February 15th by French and English Navy. The first naval attack was the greatest assemblage of naval firepower ever seen with 18 battleships. People think that history repeated itself on that day because just 3,000 years ago, the strongest navy of the time had also sailed to the Dardanelles with 1,000 black ships and 10,000 soldiers to fight against the Trojans. On March 18th, they launched another attack, but they got huge damage on the ships. It was the Turks' first victory for many years after failure of naval attacks. Allies understood that naval power was not the way to obtain access. Battleground tactics. In an attempt to recover, Allies set up another plan to take Gallipoli Peninsula with military force composed of Australian, New Zealand, British, French, and Indian soldiers. Hamilton directed the first attack for conquest of Gallipoli Peninsula in the very early morning of April 25th. The Royal Navy covered the fire, began at 4:30 a.m. Some battalions landed heavy fire, and the battle started on the 25th of April 1915. The Turks had been pushed back at mid-morning, and the Australians trudged the first range of hills, so the war had been moved inland. It was a successful landing for the Allies, but it was not the right place. Anzacs found themselves at the foot of an exceedingly steep hill. Okay, here you see some movement, but you also see what trench warfare is really like. This isn't from that area, but it's from that era. And you can actually see how they provided some coverage. Deaths. At the end of April, the number of dead and wounded on the Turkish Anzac sides ran into tens of thousands. Allies lost over 44,000 men and 97,000 wounded. The Turks lost over 87,000 men and 165,000 wounded. It would be right to say the attempt failed with heavy casualties on both sides. Here you see Turks and British fighting over a hill here in a display. The outcome, Allied troops began to depart from the peninsula, and the last troop departed on January 9th, 1916. There was no winner in the campaign. The consequences of the battle are considered losses. Britain's influence in its colonies had declined, as well as its authority, and failure marked the ending point of the British Empire. There you see Winston Churchill later in a more successful period during World War II, but this was a big defeat for Winston Churchill personally. Countries on the Black Sea coast had negative effect on international trade. In the course of history for Russia has been changed. Here in the corner, we see that what was the Russian Empire. Germany, Austria-Hungary, Bulgaria, and Ottoman Empire were the central powers. Pretty much because of this, they had to try to go through here to the Black Sea, up here to Russia, up the Volga. And this attack stopped them to try to do it. Gallipoli showed the Australians what they were made of, and it was something to be proud of. Their troops were courageous, intrepid, and they looked after one another. Here's a picture of modern war, but you still can see that it's basically people charging under fire. And the code is war never changes. But men do through the road they walk. Here you see people go and try protection, try to charge up a hill under heavy machine gun fire. And here's the bibliography. I'll put it on pause momentarily, and we're going to go to the recording from the Turkish side. Yes, I can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, then we're starting. At the beginning of the 20th century, the Ottoman Empire had the reputation of being the stickman of Europe. Following a century of slow decline, weakened by political instability, military defeat, civil strife, and uprising by national minorities, the empire was increasingly falling under the financial control of the European powers and had lost territory. In 1908, a group of young officers, known as the Young Turks, seized power in Istanbul. Sultan Mehmed V was installed as a figurehead in 1909. The new regime implemented a program of reform to modernize the outdated political and economic system and to redefine the racial character of the empire. Germany, as a supporter, provided significant investment. German diplomats gained influence, and German officers assisted in training and re-equipping the army, despite Britain being the predominant power in the region. The economic resources of the Ottoman Empire were depleted by the cost of Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913, and French, British, and Germans had offered financial aid. A pro-German faction influenced by Enver Pasha, the former Ottoman military attaché in Berlin, opposed the pro-British majority in the Ottoman cabinet and tried to secure closer relations with Germany. The geographical position of the Ottoman Empire meant that Russia, France, and Britain had a significant interest in Turkish neutrality in the event of war in Europe. So, the Ottoman Empire participated in World War I as one of the Central Powers. The Ottoman entry into World War I officially began on 29 October 1914. Two German ships on 27 October, Boden and Breslau, conducted the Black Sea raid, a sortie into the Black Sea where they bombarded the Russian port of Odessa and sank several ships. The Ottomans refused an allied demand that they expel the German nations, and 31 October 1914 formally entered the war on the side of two Central Powers. Russia declared war on Turkey on 2 November. The next day, the British ambassador left Istanbul and the British naval squadron of Çanakkale bombarded outer defense forts at Kumkale on the northern Asian coast and Tepilabi on the southern tip of the Gelibolu Peninsula. Canal front line war with Britain. The British captured Basra in November 1914 and marched north into Iraq. In Italy, Ahmed Pasha was ordered to gather an army in Palestine to threaten the Suez Canal. In response, the Allies opened another front with the Battle of Gallipoli. The army led by Ahmed Pasha to eject the British from Egypt was stopped at the Suez Canal in February 1915 and again the next summer. The canal was vital to the British war effort. The Ottomans were eventually defeated due to key attacks by the British general Edmund Ellenbach. Battle of Gallipoli or the Battle of Çanakkale. This was a campaign of the First World War that took place on the Gallipoli in the Ottoman Empire between 17 February 1915 and 9 January 1916. The peninsula formed the northern bank of Çanakkale, a strait that provided a sea route to the Russian Empire, one of the Allied powers during the war. Intending to secure it, Russia's allies, Britain and France, launched a naval attack followed by a landing on the peninsula with the aim of capturing the Ottoman capital of Istanbul. The German Marshal Otto Liman von Sanders was assigned to defend Çanakkale in command of the Fifth Army. Mustafa Kemal was given the task of organizing and commanding the 19th Division attached to the Fifth Army. On 8 January 1915, the British War Council launched an operation to bombard and take the Gelibolu Peninsula with Istanbul as a first objective. British naval attacks, however, failed to break through the Çanakkale Strait, and the British decided to support their fleet with the land attack. The land campaign took place between 25 April 1915 and 9 January 1916. With his division stationed in Gelibolu, Mustafa Kemal found himself at the center of the Allies' attempts to force their way onto the peninsula. On 25 April 1915, the Archduke and the Zealand Army forces were to move inland after landing their troops at Anzakov, but were soon met with a Turkish counterattack commanded by Mustafa Kemal. Mustafa Kemal engaged the enemy forces on the hills, held them and retook the high grounds. Largely due to him and his command, the Anzac forces were contained and British land forces failed to attain their objectives. By nightfall, the Anzacs had suffered 2,000 casualties and were fighting to remain on the beach. For the following 2 weeks, the Allies failed to advance and lost one-third of their force because Mustafa Kemal had successfully held off the Allied force at John Fraser. The Gallipoli campaign became a disastrous threat for the Allies as they were pinned down by the Turks for 10 months of incessant fighting and were unable to advance past low-lying beaches of Gallipoli. The Allies finally decided to call off the offensive and successfully evacuated their troops. Mustafa Kemal became the outstanding front-line commander and gained much respect from his former enemies for this chivalry in victory. Mustafa Kemal's speech commemorated the loss of hundreds of thousands of Turkish and Black soldiers who patiently Gallipoli campaign is inscribed on a monument on that road. Those heroes who shed their blood and lost their lives, they are now lying in the soil of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the journeys and the methods to us, as they lie side by side here in this country of ours. You, the mothers who send their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and in peace. After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons and daughters. And this is the respect to Mehmet Çıkan'ın. As a result of Mustafa Kemal's success in the Battle of Gallipoli, the duration of the World War I was extended. Bulgaria joined the war alongside the Ottoman Empire. The Caucasus frontline war with Russia. Ottoman entry into the war greatly increased the triple and tense military burden. Russia to fight on the Caucasus campaign alone and in the Persian campaign along with the United Kingdom. Ismail and Pasha set off for the Battle of Gallipoli with the intention of recapturing Ottoman Kars, overrunning Georgia and occupying western Persia and the Oghuz. Fighting the Russians in the Caucasus, the Ottomans was ground and over 100,000 soldiers in a series of battles. 60,000 Ottoman soldiers were frozen due to heavy winter conditions, cold, starvation, etc. In 1916 and 1917, on the Mush-Bitlis section of the front, the Russians captured Erzurum, Mush, Bitlis, Trabzon, and Erzincan. Mustafa Kemal's troops was assigned to the Bispan and Mush and Bitlis were recaptured. After the Bolshevik Revolution, Russia withdrew from the war and the Ottomans and Russia finally Brest-Litovsk treaty. Brest-Litovsk. Kars, Ardahan, and Batum were taken back. Russia was pulled out of war and the Caucasian front was closed. Empire in home front. The war tested to limit the empire's relations with its Arab population. During the war, Britain had been a major sponsor of Arab nationalist thought and ideology, primarily as a weapon to use against the power of the empire. Sharif Hussein Ismaili rebelled against the Ottoman rule during the Arab Revolt of 1960. In August, he was replaced by Sharif Haidar, but in October, he proclaimed himself King of Arabia, and in December was recognized by the British as an independent ruler. Thereafter, the empire could be influenced with corners of events other than try to prevent use of the uprising. Prevent it could mobilize the Iron Act as a propaganda for anti-Ottoman Arab nations. On 3 October 1918, forces of the Arab Revolt entered Damascus, accompanied by British troops, ending 400 years of Ottoman rule.
Armistice of Modros. The Armistice of Modros concluded on 30 October 1918, ended the hostilities at noon the next day in the Middle Eastern theater between the Ottoman Empire and the Allies of World War I. It was signed by the Ottoman Minister of Marine Affairs Rauf Bey and the British Admiral Summerest Arthur Gough Halford. As part of several conditions to the armistice, the Ottomans surrendered their remaining garrison outside Anatolia, as well as granted the Allies the right to occupy forts controlling the straits of the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus, and the right to occupy the same in case of disorder in Ottoman territory in the event of the threat to their security. The Ottoman army, including the Ottoman Air Force, was demobilized, and all ports, railways, and other strategic points were made available for use by the Allies. In the Caucasus, the Ottomans had to retreat within the pre-war borders between the Ottoman and the Russian empires. The armistice was followed by the occupation of Istanbul and the subsequent partitioning of the Ottoman Empire. The Allies did not wait for a peace treaty for claiming the Ottoman territory. Just 13 days after the armistice of Mondros, a French brigade entered Constantinople on November 12, 1980. The first British troops entered the city on November 13, 1980. Early in December 1918, Allied troops occupied sections of Constantinople and set up an Allied military administration. Results of the occupation. First, Ottoman Parliament was collapsed. Third, Turkish people in Istanbul started migrating to Anatolia when they saw there was no hope for salvation in Istanbul. People were being dissatisfied with the Istanbul government when Grom Ferit Pasha became a head of government. It set ground for the Turkish national movement and the Turkish War of Independence. In August 1919, John de Robeck was very worried by the defiant mode of Ottoman Parliament. When 1920 arrived, he was concerned by reports that substantial stocks of the arms were reaching Turkish revolutionists. Conference of London, February 1920. John de Robeck reminded the participants that Anatolia was moving into a resistance stage. There were arguments of national facts circulating, and if these were solidified, it would take a longer time and more resources to handle the partition in the Ottoman Empire. He tried to persuade the leaders to take quick action and control the Sultan and to pressure the rebels. Nationalist Turkish sentiment rose in the Anatolian Peninsula, engendering the establishment of the Turkish national movement. During the Turkish War of Independence, Mustafa Kemal put forth the nation that there would be only one way for the liberation of the Turkish people in the aftermath of World War I, namely through the creation of independent, sovereign Turkish state. The Turkish national movement in Anatolia culminated in the formation of a new Grand National Assembly by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk and his colleagues. On 1 of November 1922, the Grand National Assembly declared the Ankara government to be the Turkish government and abolished the Sultanate. On 17 November 1922, Mehmet VI Vahidettin, the last Ottoman Sultan, deported from Istanbul aboard the British ship HMS Malaya. Early pressure role in insurgency, April-June 1920. The British argued that the insurgency of the Turkish revolutionists should be suppressed by local forces in Anatolia. With the help of British training and arms, in response to a formal British request, the Istanbul government appointed the extraordinary Anatolian General Inspector Süleyman Şefik Pasha and the new Security Army, while in Zibatiye to enforce central government control with British support. The British also supported local guerrilla groups in the Anatolian heartlands with money and arms. You can see the wars now. Western activity stage, Greco-Turkish War, 1919-1922. As soon as Grey forces landed in Smyrna, a Turkish nationalist opened fire, prompting brutal reprisals. Greek forces used Smyrna as a base for launching attacks deeper in Anatolia. Mustafa Kemal refused to accept even a temporary Greek presence in Smyrna. Eventually, the Turkish nationalists, aid of the Kemalist armed force, defeated the Greek troops and population and pushed them out of Smyrna and the rest of Anatolia. End of the occupation of Istanbul. The success of the Turkish national movement against the French and Brits was followed by their forces threatening the Allied forces at Chennai. The British decided to resist any attempt to penetrate the neutral zone of the Straits. Mustafa Kemal was persuaded by the French to order his forces to avoid any incident at Chennai. Nevertheless, the Chennai crisis nearly resulted in hostilities. These being awaited on October 11, 1922, when the Armistice of Mudanya was signed, bringing to end of the Turkish War of Independence. The handling of this crisis caused the collapse of David Lloyd George Ministry on October 19, 1922. Turkish troops entering Istanbul. After the end of the Turkish-Armenian, Franco-Turkish, Greco-Turkish front, the Treaty of Sevres was abandoned and the Treaties of Kars, October 1921, and the Peace Treaty of Lausanne, July 1923, were signed. The Allies left Anatolian eastern Thrace. With the establishment of the Turkish national movement, the partition of the Ottoman Empire, and the evolution of the Sultanate, the Ottoman era and the empire came to an end. And with Atatürk's reforms, the Turks created the modern secular nation state of Turkey on the political front. A republic was proclaimed on October 29, 1923 in the new capital of Ankara. Mustafa Kemal Atatürk was elected as the first president. On 3 of March 1924, the Ottoman Caliphate was officially abolished and the last caliph was exiled.
That was really good. What did you guys learn from doing this? Yeah. What did you?
We have reminded our history again.
Yeah. We're going to. We have to do this with Australia. We're taping this part. We're doing it with Australian people, and then I'll send you back when we put it together. But we're doing it Thursday afternoon, so you can have it Friday morning to look at class. And they're going to do it from the Australian side, and it'll be kind of interesting. And I would love to eventually have to do something with the British and the German schools, because that'd be kind of cool too. I didn't realize, well, I mean, I watched enough Turkish television to realize how bad it was during the occupation afterwards. And I read the transcripts of some of the kangaroo courts and stuff that put some of the people to in prison, which was really bad. What's Ataturk's, how is he considered? I see his picture all the time. How is he considered in Turkey today?
Can you repeat?
Yeah, the father of the Republic of Turkey, how is he considered today in Turkey?
He's still considered as the father of the Republic of Turkey. People love him, and he misses him every day.
Okay, when you are taught about the Ottoman Empire, what are some of the highlights that you're taught about?
We are shown that the Ottoman Empire made a nice twist. So that's one of the most important things.
Okay, and when you're taught in your history classes, the Treaty of Sardes and some of the other treaties that came at the very end, were they pretty? When the Ottomans signed the ceasefire on October 30th, they were thinking it was a ceasefire. They weren't thinking that they were giving up all their land, were they?
I think they wouldn't expect the invasion. They just wanted to ceasefire, but the Allied forces, England and French, invade them, and they didn't. They
had
couldn't
no other
do
choice.
nothing.
Yeah, no, I understand. I was just saying, it's part of history that here in the United States, we just kind of really gloss over a whole lot. You know, you hear that the war was, you know, kind of strange, but I don't think we get both sides of the story. And at the Battle of Gallipoli, I can't pronounce the Turkish name for it, but that's that's a major success for the gentleman that ends up fighting Turkey. Wasn't that one of the major successful battles during the war for you?
Yes, it is one of the most successful battles in the world.
It prevents so many things.
Yeah, and today I've seen several documentaries and stuff where people are still discovering artifacts and stuff from different things. And if you just saw the terrain, that terrain is really hard. I don't know how anybody would be able to rush up a hill and try to charge 4 to 5 people and figure they're going to try to do something when you have automatic weapon fire on you. I don't see how that made any sense at all, but that's just, I guess that's something for the historians to look at. When do you guys get out of school? When's your last day of school?
Almost 45 minutes.
No, I don't mean that, but I mean, when's your last day of school for the school year?
The first week of July.
Wow.
Sorry, June.
Yeah, okay. And when do you, are all you guys graduating, or any of you coming back for next year?
No.
I will be graduating next year.
You coming back? Oh, wow. Okay. And go ahead.
We are 10th grade. Yes, we are 10th grade. And we have 2 more years.
2 more years. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of fun. Well, I was going to say one more thing. I won't ask, but the people from Australia have interviewed a couple of their relatives that had died. Well, of course, they're passed on, but I mean, they've had quite a few people that you're going to see some information on that have actually fought in that battle. So they're going to tell it from a perspective of losing some people, some of their family members. I guess it'd be great-grandparents or something like that now. But that seemed to be pretty heavy-handed because the Anzac troops were the ones that were, the British used all their colonial, they didn't use their own forces as much. So it's kind of an odd deal. How far is Ankara from Bursa? How far is it?
Bursa kaç kilometre?
About 5 hours before. So,
It takes 5 hours.
Okay, and how far are you from Istanbul?
It's 2 hours, 5 hours.
Oh, wow. And did they want to change the capital because Bursa was too connected to the Ottoman Empire, or what?
I think they changed the capital because Ankara is in the heart of Anatolia and
Okay, and then a couple more things. How comfortable are you with English?
you see it as like normal country as other countries.
Okay, I mean the English language itself. How did you learn to speak English so well?
We have been learning almost, we are 10 or 9. So
Yeah, we
it has
started
been
at
many years.
4th grade. You
Oh, wow.
learn something and you learn it. We have interest in English, so we learned it.
We have been speaking English almost 9 years.
Oh, wow. And what other do you speak other languages besides Turkish?
Yes, we are being taught German. But I was not able to learn this in school.
Oh, wow, that's really neat. And in the Turkish, have you studied much about Turkish migrations from Mongolia or other places? Do you know where? Okay, well, I thought maybe we talked about Turkish language. Have you ever talked to anybody from Abrizar or Baku? Baku, how do you pronounce it? Okay, my question is this: is Turkish change as the Turks migrated from the east? I understand, like people in Turkmenistan and other places will speak a Turkish, but it's a little bit different than the Turkish you'll speak. Is that true?
If we talk to a person from Azerbaijan,
Yeah.
we can't understand them, but it's like we can't understand some words. For example, when you talk to someone from Australia, you can understand what they're saying, but there are some certain words that you can't understand because of the place they develop some other words.
Yeah, well, you'll find out, of course, I speak with a bad Texas accent, but the people in Australia will speak with such a really nice Australian accent. It does make a lot of difference. They keep on saying, well, you talk too fast. Well, I don't know. But I did not know so many people spoke Turkish, and the Turkish language is spread out so far. I mean, all the way from almost parts of China to west in the Balkans where you guys are at. Because I think your teacher family originally came from Bulgaria.
Yeah. Would you like to learn Turkish?
Oh, really?
Would you like to learn Turkish?
Oh, yeah. I told you before, I wish I could speak Turkish more. I can speak just a few, really weird words, or I'll know what they are because I watch enough Turkish.
Can you tell some of them?
Well, some of what? The TV shows or the
Some of the words. Some of the words.
Merhaba. I can't say it right. I'm sorry. Okay, sort of right. Yeah. And I don't know. I just been fascinated. I did not know that. I always thought, well, I don't know how to say this nicely, but I did not know that I had so many relatives that were Turkish until I started doing a lot more family history. And then I find out that, oh my gosh, about half my family on my dad's side came from different Turkish tribes. And then that would include, then I had some of my, and then as strange as it is, so many people intermarry. As my family's been around Anatolia for probably 3,000 years. So, I guess some of my family was already in Anatolia, and then some of the family came and married into that family, and then ended up coming to Europe, and here I am in Texas. But I'm always been fascinated. I haven't been able to watch the new Mehmet, the one with the guy from Izal. It's on Canal Channel, I think it is. And it's got some really good actors, but it's about Mehmet the Conqueror.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that good? Do you ever watch any serial shows or no?
I don't.
I watched them.
Oh, you? Oh, okay. Some people, I talk to some people say they're afraid to admit they actually watch. But I don't know how historical they are, but they are pretty good entertainment. I mean, I think you can learn culture, at least from our aspect. They're highly tainted, I guess.
They have some small mistakes, but they are, I think.
Yeah, I saw part of Magnificent Century too. I thought that was pretty good. I don't know what Sultan that was. And then I watched one about the last Sultan, but they didn't have the English subs after about, I think by episode 12 or 13, so it kind of dropped off. I don't really know what happened, but it talks about the heavy-handedness of the English and the Russians and the Germans from 1870 on. It was really pretty bad, I think. Is all your families from Versra for a long time or no?
Yeah, mine are in Bursa for volunteer. She's from Bulgaria. I'm not from Bulgaria. Our family is from Bulgaria.
Oh, really? Where?
In Bulgaria.
Oh, really? Wow. And well, my family goes back to Bulgaria when the Bulgars first came. I guess with the Huns, but they go back to around 400 and something AD in Bulgaria. And then my last relative was I had some kings and stuff in Bulgaria about 1200 and something. But yeah, I really like Bulgaria. We used to talk to some schools in Sofia, which was really nice. But where did you live in Bulgaria? Where's your family from?
I have no idea. They came here when they were really young.
Yeah. I did not know this. I guess I'm just learning all kinds of stuff. But, about 100 years ago, Turkey was not a large country until after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. And all of a sudden, it's gone from like 10 million to almost 90 million. So a lot of people from different parts of the empire have come back to live in Turkey, I think.
Yeah, they are really good people.
It's a very mixed group of people, correct?
Yes, it is.
Now, is your Turkish any different than the Turkish of the other students? I mean, is your family's Turkish any different from
No.
Bulgaria?
My parents grew up in Turkey, so they have different stuff in the
What type of movies are really popular right now in Turkey?
Infinity War.
Ready to go whenever you guys are. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear you at all. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Keep going. Okay.
Okay. Now let me turn it up.
What's the weather
Okay, I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Because I was just holding up a sign saying we're having microphone problems.
Yeah, before we did this, I was recorded the people from this earlier this morning from Turkey. So I was playing that in there. So go ahead.
Okay, so I've got Ciara, Nathan, and Josh.
Okay.
And then some of my Year 9 students, so they're, what, 13, 14? 13 and 14 years old.
Well, good.
Or 15. And Nathan's 15 in the middle. So in terms of really what they know at the moment, they've only had probably 4 lessons on Soldier's Life at Gallipoli at the moment because they've got a student teacher teaching them. So we kind of have to link in with the student teacher, but they've certainly watched the movie Gallipoli and have started some research.
Well, good. I'm anxious to hear what they have to say.
All right, who wants to go first?
Are we just talking to him?
Yeah, so Mike, just in terms, when you were talking to Turkey this morning, the Turkish students, were you talking about us?
Well, yeah, I was. Yeah, I was trying to make it sound.
Okay.
And they had a PowerPoint about. Excuse me. Let me unplug this a second. Okay. I guess there's a little less feedback. They had a PowerPoint about the Gallipoli from their point of view, and then we try to have it from your point of view, and then we try to have it from American point of view to try to look at some of the major mistakes and stuff. And then they went into how that helped Ataturk become the leader of the Turkish army because of the great victory, and then he later became the president of Turkey.
Right. No, just I was a little concerned when you said that our students had family members that had died at the war. So these three, to my knowledge, don't have family members that have died at the war, but they can still give some perspective from what they found out.
Right, yeah. I thought maybe you interviewed some people. That's what I was saying. I was talking off the top of my head. So
No,
go ahead. Here.
Yeah. We didn't get around to that yet anyway. So, all right, Ciara might go first.
So, what do I start with?
Talk about, yeah, talk about, you know, what you think the soldier's life was like at Gallipoli.
Well, at Gallipoli, they started off enthusiastic and they were more keen and excited to go be a part of the war because they were excited to fight for their country and the people. And they also, a lot of them saw it as an opportunity to explore, and it was a fun time for them. And a lot of them were filled with innocence, so they never really understood how brutal it would be. They didn't expect it to be as rough. And they underestimated the Turkish for their weapons and their bases and stuff. So they just weren't expecting what they got. And then when they were met with the gunfire, they realized how fatal it would be for them when all their people got shot down straight away. So, yeah.
Right, now, if you want to say anything. Josh, yeah.
When they were in the training camp in Egypt, it kind of seemed like it was just a big party because they were going into the town and they were just going into all the stores and buying souvenirs and stuff, and they were just having drinks and they didn't really take anything seriously. And like Ciara said, I don't think they actually understood what they were getting into until they actually got to Turkey, and then they kind of regretted their decision, especially since there was a lot of talk about the ladies liking them for going off to war, so they always presumed that they'd be going back and then they'd be really popular when they got back, except they're not going to go back.
Yeah.
It's a war, so.
Yeah. So what they were led to believe, when they enlisted, it was all, yeah, you go off, you'll fight, you'll become a hero, and then when they got back, well, the very few of them that got back were heavily wounded or, experienced some quite traumatic stuff while they were over there. What types of food and that did they have?
They basically just had food to get them by, so it wasn't anything nutritious, it wasn't going to be helping them at all, it was just there to feed them, basically.
Do you reckon it was nice?
No.
What sort of stuff did they eat?
It was hard biscuits, hard bread, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, which doesn't seem very appetizing to me.
Yeah.
So in terms of, because of the excitement that they were all going to be heroes when they came back, what happened to a few of the, when enlisted, what did Archie do, in what we saw?
Well, Archie convinced his friend to join him because he thought, they were going to go together and that it was going to be easy for them and they wanted to, have fun together while they went. Yeah. And then I guess when it got towards the end where Archie got offered to be the runner and one of them had to still go fight, Archie gave it to Frank because he felt bad for bringing Frank into the war. So Frank ended up being the runner while Archie had to go sacrifice his life.
Yeah. And how old was Archie?
Archie was 18. 17.
Yeah. And what was the age of enlistment?
21.
Yeah. So what we found is that lots of people were actually faking their birth certificates to get enlisted because, as Josh was saying, they were made out in Australia that, you know, you go off and you fight in a war and you've got to become a national hero. I mean, and they are, but when they came back, there was very little of them that actually came back. Talk about when when they're on the front line in the Gallipoli movie, and Frank goes to run off to get the word to say
That
we're basically getting slaughtered as soon as we take one single step and we go. What do you reckon? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it was miscommunication that they were supposed to just wait for the fourth wave to go over, but because of that miscommunication, when they ran over, you know, they all got slaughtered, and it was brutal, obviously, but it shouldn't have been done like that. I think the officer should have been more aware that, you know, it was a bad idea by now. He should have maybe waited for some confirmation before sending his final wave over anyway. Like, it's kind of a stupid idea.
And what was some of the failure in the communication? There was something to do, he looked at his arm. What was there a discrepancy? So he looked at his watch, remember?
Oh.
So there was a timing issue between people on one side of the line and people on the other side. They were supposed to attack at the same time, but their watches were out by 5 minutes, and that actually caused a huge issue because according to I think it was the general that gave the order to go, he's like, well, they should still be going by now.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was a lot of confusion. But in terms of the terrain actually in Gallipoli, so not what we saw in the movie, there's another documentary called Battlefield Detectives. Have you heard of that, Mike?
Yeah, I've actually watched a couple of documentaries on those Battlefield Detectives. It's really interesting. Now, the Anzac troops, they were pretty much from April on until the exit in January of 16, they were pretty much the bulk of the people doing the fighting too, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there was a lot of illness, mainly caused to, you know, their nutrition, their environment, and there was a lot of dysentery within the soldiers, and it was, you know, basically the principle was if you could hold up a gun, you could fight, and, you know, that doesn't really sit well with me at all because, you know, the rations of water were just ridiculous.
What did you learn from doing all this? That you kind of already know.
Well, I'd say it was it was an unfair fight. It wasn't an unfair fight because they were obviously going onto their land to invade their land, but the way they were equipped with bayonets and like no ammo to fight back for their machine gun fire that was being shot at them, there was really no chance either way for them to get over to the enemy line with bayonets anyway. So they probably should have had better tactics when they were going into the war, and they probably would have had more success rather than being shot down in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think Winston Churchill and some of the other British people who designed that plan were really flabbergasted themselves. I think there's a good historical documentary that's out now talking about how bad the pre-planning was and how surprised that people were when they originally landed on the peninsula. They had no idea it was going straight vertical with heavy machine gun fire. And some of the landing boats, I think 90% of the people died. So I mean, you couldn't even get off the boat without being killed.
Can we turn it up this time?
Yeah, hang on. Mike, can you just hang on a second? I've got our groundskeepers mowing, and I just need to try and get him to stop. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that's a lot better than the feedback.
But yeah, one of the Battlefield Detectives documentaries that I have seen, and the students will watch later in the unit. So this is only at the start of their unit. The unit will go for about probably 6 weeks. So they've only had 2 weeks of 2 lessons each. But yeah, that Battlefield documentary is quite you know, spine tingling when you see that, you know, the plans that were drawn up by the British, they, you know, they were completely inadequate of the terrain, what
Oh yeah.
we, you know, the Australians were actually expecting, and, you know, the barbed wire entanglement and, you know, the snipers, and it was just, as soon as they got out of the boat, as you were saying, at the peninsula, they were just, you know, it was a similar situation to on the front line. It was ridiculous. The planning, in hindsight, was very poor, and, you know, issues with the ammunition and or lack of ammunition, you know, no machine guns, and then the weapons being jammed because there was a miscommunication between the British and the Australians in terms of the rifles. So the ammunition wasn't fitting the Australian rifles and then was getting jammed in the actual rifles, so they actually weren't firing. So the students will see that when they watch the Battlefield Detectives documentary. But
yeah, they were saying, I think they were saying about some of the charges where they go over the top, they didn't have the ammunition work, so all they had was the bayonets against the machine guns. That's not really a fair fight.
yeah, well that's, yeah, and that's exactly what Ciara was saying. Whilst in terms of being fair, as Ciara said, yep, the Australians were invading Turkey, but at the same time, it was never an even fight. And also when you're defending your country, you know, there's more of a pride and there's more of, you know, we will defend this country and we will be successful, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. I was looking over some of the stuff that the kids had done, and they said there's 100 and I forget 50 or 60,000 Turks that had died in the almost that year campaign. And considering that they had the high ground and stuff, it was that's awful lot of people that were killed by the Anzac troops, considering they were in such a bad disadvantage on the terrain. So that had to be a very, very fierce battle. And some of the battlefield shows will tell you they still find ammunition even today that left over. It's over 102 years old, 103 years old now. So that's strange.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the water, I think there was a lot of misunderstanding too from the soldiers that, you know, the water that they were drinking, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but particularly in the Battlefield Detectives movie documentary, the water that they were drinking was actually contaminated with salt. So every time they drank, it was dehydrating them and causing them to be even more thirsty. But, you know, saying that even the water that they got, they were rationed and they had to choose to either drink that water or wash themselves, you know, and it was if push comes to shove, you've got to drink water or wash yourself, what are you going to do? Drink the water, and that's also the poor hygiene comes in, and then that led to a lot of diseases and illnesses.
Yeah, and dysentery in trenches has to be really bad because it just goes through everybody.
Oh, absolutely, and some of the movies that I've seen that, you know, to actually get your colleagues or fellow soldiers to actually hold you up so you can go to the toilet so you don't fall in, is, you know, it would have been psychologically damaging for a lot of those soldiers in many levels.
Yeah, now, when's the Anzac Day in Australia? Don't they have a celebration still for all the people that fought in the war?
Yeah, so when was it, Josh? Yeah, so we've just had it. It was on the 25th of April.
And what do you guys do for celebration? What do they do now?
So it's a national, it's a national holiday. And so there are a whole different war memorials around, or kind of like celebrations around the state, particularly. I'm not sure what other states do, but you know, there's obviously one in the city where the war memorial is, and then kind of each suburb, you know, at sunset at sunrise would, you know, remember all of those who fought in the war for us.
Wow. That's still nice, because we're coming up on the 100th anniversary of the end of the war with armistice in November, and we're going to try to do a special deal then with some people from each country that participated. So that'd be kind of an interesting thing. But I was thinking a long time ago, because I really liked that. That's one of the few Mel Gibson movies I really enjoyed. I thought he was really good, and I think that's what kind of started his career back in '81, Gallipoli. But I thought he did a very good job in that movie.
Oh, absolutely. And do you guys know who Mel Gibson is? So that was Frank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So for these students here, they probably had never heard of Mel Gibson because he's, you know, more your generation and closer to mine than theirs.
Oh yeah.
Probably, I don't even know who can find out, but yeah. But certainly he was still in my time, and he went on to do lots of comedies after that. But he was really powerful in that movie, as was the character played by Archie. I don't know who Archie was off the top of my head, but yeah, very powerful.
And what would you like to say to the school in Turkey that was studying this from the other side? Is there anything you'd like to say to them?
The students will be in Turkey,
So are they like supporting their side of the war?
Oh no! What's really kind of interesting at this point, you got to remember the reason why the Ottoman Empire was attacked was because they considered it to be the weakest point of the Central Powers, and they were going to try to knock them out. Well, eventually, what happens is the Ottoman Empire falls, but then Turkey rises. So you know, they were just talking about the battles, and they still have people go down to the park there, and sometimes people take metal detectors. Even today, you'll see people do that. And I'll show you the PowerPoint. I'll send you links, and you can look at the PowerPoint and everything. You can kind of see. It's kind of interesting just to look at, because normally in history books you only get one side. So this is kind of trying to be like a 360-degree look at a battle a little bit more.
Yeah, and as I said, our students, if we probably were able to do this in about 4 weeks' time, I think they probably would have been more conversational, particularly with that Battlefield Detectives. If we had a chance to watch that, or with a student teacher, I couldn't get her to watch Gallipoli, then watch Battlefield Detectives straight away after, because she actually has to do some teaching. So we're a little bit restricted in terms of getting some info, because we've just come, this is only our second week back because we had the 2 weeks holidays.
Oh yeah, I know you guys just have so many holidays. It's really nice. We don't quite get those many here in the States, but you know that's kind of nice. I think some of my kids are supposed to show up today, took a holiday, so I kind of upset, but so I'm here, but that worked. That school from Turkey is also starting to do some mock trials and moot courts with us. So in the fall, they're going to be starting to do up some, so we can maybe share some different things. It'll be kind of interesting.
Sure. So how many holidays do you actually get, Mark, in Texas?
We will go until June, and then the first week of June, then we'll start summer school about a week later. And then school will start in the end of August, or about we'll go back about the mid-August, and then we have a week off at Thanksgiving and 2 weeks off at Christmas, and then we get a week spring break. But other than that, it's pretty much solid for about 180 days.
Wow. Because we have an 11-week term, then we get 2 weeks holidays. That's like starting from February. Then we have a 10-week term, 2 weeks holidays. And then we have a 10-week term again, 2 weeks holidays. So they get 6 weeks during the year. And then the last term is 9 weeks. And they get about 5 to 6 weeks off over the Christmas break.
Yeah, that your summer break down there, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, over the summer. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what time do you go to school in the morning?
8:30.
And what time do you get out?
3
2:30
o'clock.
on, no, 2:30 on Mondays then.
Yeah, so generally 3 o'clock, but 2:30 on a Monday, because we have staff training on a Monday afternoon. Do you want to talk about the new SEO?
Oh, I'm not really very, like, you guys are better at this. You guys are the representatives.
So tell them what we've got a new principal, Mike, and we're going through some rapid changes at the moment. The boys are going to talk a bit about it.
I'm not exactly sure what student-centered learning is. It's basically getting you learning the stuff that you want to learn.
We're picking like subjects that we want to learn. Like I think we are voting on it next week or something.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we can vote on subjects that we want. And I think that they're also cutting back on some of the subjects so that you don't have to do every single subject.
You're basically getting more ideas for yourself. We're basically going to be teaching, not ourselves, but we're going to be able to do what we want, and the teachers are just going to be supporting.
I find that fascinating, but I would think that could have potential pitfalls. Do you have to take like standardized tests or something too, or no?
So just in terms of that, so what the plan is, so we're part of the Future Schools Alliance group, and we are only the 3rd school in South Australia to join that. So the student-centred learning approach is a pedagogical approach where teachers really are facilitators and the student drives their own learning and independent learning. So, there'll be flexible starts in the time, so students, going forward, not initially next semester, but next year, there'll be a 7:30 a.m. start, and you can potentially finish at 1:30, or you could start at 8:30 and finish at 3, or you could start at 10:30 and finish at 5 o'clock. So there's going to be lots of flexible opportunities.
Yeah.
And in terms of each student, we won't have any year levels. So each student will come in at an entry level, and they need to complete some core subjects like a basic science, a literacy, a numeracy course, and a couple of other prerequisites that we set in. So if the student is able, theoretically, if they're in year 8, if they are able to do year 10 work, then we will not stop them from doing that. So it's all about accelerating our students, but also giving them the opportunity. So in terms of if you want a safe pathway to go into university, we'll give you everything you need to get into that. If you want to be a fitness instructor, we'll give you everything you need to be a fitness instructor so that when you finish school, you'll be ready to go out and almost start doing that work.
Can we start our SACE early?
Yes. So you will be able to start your SACE earlier. And also we've just, it's just been confirmed that we've got a connection with Adelaide University. So traditionally, to get into uni, you have to get an ATAR, which means that's your 4 subjects are calculated and points, and you allocated points according to that subject. And you need to say you might need to get into law, you might need an ATAR of like 96 out of 100.
Okay.
So in terms of that, our students at Findon High School won't necessarily need an ATAR to get into Adelaide University. So we're going to have a backdoor option because Adelaide University, we're going to have professors and lecturers come to our school. And we're also going to start offering some university subjects here.
Now, from a teaching aspect, are teachers embracing this change or not?
We're all very scared and anxious at the moment, and just as the students are. So, I mean, it's pretty much up in the air, but, our numbers are fairly low. We're in the, mid-200s, and we need a point of difference to make Findon successful. So we've got a lot of great things that we do here, like particularly our bookroom, but just we've got a lot of close government schools in the area. They all have specialties. So we've got, one school's a music program, so they kind of attract a lot of students. One school's a special sports program, one has a baseball and an accelerated learning. So we're all in direct competition, and we seem to have something to do. Yeah, and we also have a unit attached to our school where students who have severe multiple disabilities, so some students can't speak there. I think they're all in a wheelchair but one. And so they use a laptop to kind of push buttons and communicate. So, you know, they do some special programs in the unit, but they obviously integrate in our classrooms as well. Not so much in a talking capacity, but just joining in for a social aspect.
Now, I would assume that the students like this idea, correct?
I think, like, Nathan and Josh are nodding their heads. Ciara's a bit unsure. So, I mean, this only got proposed to the students about 3 weeks ago. So they've actually got a meeting this afternoon in all of their year levels to, like, as Josh said, to actually, so teachers have sat down and come up with some subjects that they could potentially offer, like,
Well, if you could do me a big favor and keep me abreast of what's going on there, because that's really fascinating. I think that we maybe should tell this to other schools all around the world, because if that catches on and does well, that might not be a bad, that could be not only a leader in South Australia, but you could change the educational system all over the place. We're doing something similar to that, but not near as much as you could just pick your own classes. I think that's kind of fascinating. As a teacher, I'd be a little afraid, because sometimes you figure, like, you know, you may lose a job or whatever, but, you know, we got to remember we're here for students, not for ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, in terms of the teachers losing their job, so in South Australia, we've got permanent teachers and we've got contract teachers. So every staff member at our school at the moment is permanent. So that means they're guaranteed tenure unless they do something significantly wrong.
Right, but at some point, though, Mel, I mean, if they pick X and everybody wants Y, even though you guarantee a job, it's going to be a rift there somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah,
I mean, if somebody doesn't pick your subjects that you're teaching, how can you still maintain positions? Or conversely,
other subjects that they are willing to teach. So, I mean, I've put forward a subject simply just mock hearings.
okay.
So, you know, there's still, or forensics is one of the other things that I've suggested that can link in with our courtroom stuff. But so it's not stuff that's necessarily outside of their expertise. It's
Right.
stuff volunteer. Some, you know, I would like to teach this. You know, one of the subjects suggested is floristry. You know, creating flower bundles and whatever, and then perhaps starting our own business school, and then the students can outsource that business. So we're also looking at, you know, entrepreneurship and a whole range of other issues. But there's a man named Peter Hutton. If you Google him, he started it in Templestowe College in Melbourne. So he was there at the time, and I think this is about their 10th year. So Peter Hutton has just retired as a principal and started his own consultancy firm, because he believes this is the way of education of the future. So he started this Future Schools Alliance, and that's where we've got 3 schools in South Australia who've got on board. I think there's about 12 around the country coming together for a conference in Melbourne in a few weeks about.
Oh, wow. Yeah, let me know, because this is really fascinating. And we're going to meet again on the 24th for the Peter Pedler, right?
Yeah, and we've got one with Taiwan on Wednesday afternoon, our time.
Okay, Wednesday, your time. So it's next Tuesday, right?
Yeah, so it's 1:30 p.m. our time next Wednesday. That might be, I don't even know what time day that is for you.
Okay, well, just email me on that time deal, okay? I'm going to have to go now, but we'll see you then next week or the week after, okay? Thank you.